Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. We are here for our astrology of the week ahead. We are in January. I'm talking about January 6th through 13th. And this is a bit of a big week. Last week was a bit of a big week. This is a bit of a big week because we start the week off with Mars retrograde moving back into Cancer and beginning its journey through Cancer. We also have the nodes changing signs this week on January 11th, and then this week ends with our Cancer full moon. So there's a lot of cosmic weather, and also it is nice when this kind of astro of the week ahead aligns with the full moon or the new moon, because this really gives you kind of a narrative of the energy that's pulling us into that full moon. Okay, I will also, of course, do a video just on that full moon that will really open it up a lot more. But here we can really just see what we're going to be working with this week. I hope that 2025 has been a little gentle with you, though that Mars opposite Pluto that we're coming out of was not necessarily gentle internally and or externally with all of us, especially if we have personal placements. But just remembering that that opposition is part of a process, and we're in process. And we pick this week up being in that process as that Mars moves back into Cancer. Okay, so Mars moves into Cancer on the 6th. It'll be at 29 degrees of Cancer. And all in all, this is going to be retrograde through Cancer until February 23rd. It's going to go back to 17 degrees, okay? But this switch of Mars into Cancer is a major energy switch, especially coming out of the opposition with Pluto. So first, it's important, though, that we have that context of Mars opposite Pluto, because that was potential breakthrough energy for us, even if in very much we could still be in process of that breakthrough that comes from the breakdown, but there could have been a lot of tension. We might not even know the revelations that are coming from something like that, but it is about our personal will unlearning what gets in the way from our personal desire aligning with higher authentic soul desire. That is kind of the archetypal possibility of the window that this cosmic conversation's opening for us. And now that Mars moves into Cancer. Now, I need to limit myself from just making this whole video about Mars and Cancer, because this is, like I said, it is a major energy change, and there's such opportunity for healing, for unlearning and relearning about our drive, our primal drive. And Cosmos is saying that unlearning and relearning really has to do right now with us centering self-love, with us centering nurture, with us taking that active drive principle that most of us get taught needs to be about performing, needs to be about going out into the world and showing them how amazing we are. You are amazing. You can still show them how amazing you are, but we don't need to work so hard at it, because you just are amazing. You don't need to perform in any way to show that. And rather than having to feel like we have to show up and keep working and perform and climb that social ladder, bring it all back, unwind it all. This is about that Mars relearning how to embody self-care, how to privilege that self-care. And so this is the energy that we start this week off with, okay? And this is not always easy. A lot of us are not taught this, especially if we have complicated histories with power. Who doesn't? Maybe someone not born in this age on this planet, right? But Mars does bring up all the stuff that we've been taught about power, especially through patriarchal ideologies that manifest in the micro experiences of our personal lives. That's Mars. So there's a lot of unlearning and just remembering to soften as we move through. Now, because that Mars comes into Cancer at 29 degrees, that also means it's trine Neptune. So this week, that Mars retrograde is also coming into its trine with Neptune. It will be exact a little later on the 12th, I believe. Yes, on the 12th it will be exact. But all week, that Mars is shifting into Cancer and it is trining Neptune. So we really want to pull back. We really want to invite going with the flow, softening, leaning into those arts and more ethereal, mystical zones, experiences that can take us places, and just trying to go with the flow. Okay. Now, there's also a lot of other things going on. So then just a few other cosmic moments that we're having on the 7th, which is Tuesday. Had to think about that. Black Moon Lilith. So I work with true Black Moon Lilith, but she is moving into Scorpio. Okay. So this is a shift as well. Lilith, Black Moon Lilith moving into Scorpio. Oh, the witchy depths, the alchemizing ways that we can really claim. This is a Lilith that just, oh my gosh, this Lilith, she does not need to look pretty. She does not need to concern herself. This goes lovely with the Mars actually retrograde in Cancer. This is not about just kind of putting on a face and show and smiling. No. Lilith going into Scorpio. This is about her just feeling her power and alchemizing with it. It is really going into those depths of experience, those depths of emotions, knowing that the power and gold that comes when we allow ourselves to go into those raw places. So that kind of energy is also accompanying us this week. We are also moving on the 8th. So bang, bang, bang. On the 8th, we're going to have Mercury move into Capricorn. Okay, so we've come out of that somewhat intense kind of gear grinding Mercury retrograde that we had in Sagittarius. Mercury moved out of its shadow, and now Mercury is going to move into Capricorn this week. So we're going to also feel that shift of our mind, thought, expression, communication. You know, Mercury in Sag is all about the big ideas, expansion, planning, adventuring. Mercury moves into Capricorn and it's got a little bit more of, okay, what do I have to do in order to align myself with these needs and goals? And this is how it's going to happen. And that might be actually welcomed, especially after some of that Mercury retrograde. And we had Jupiter and Saturn talking to that Mercury retrograde. This gives us a little bit more ability to dig into, firstly, this reality. Okay, we've had all the plans, we've had the inspiration. Some of them might have been really lofty ideas that aren't necessarily going to happen. Some of them are absolutely going to happen. And that Capricorn says, yes, this is going to happen. And I am going to come up with the 5-year plan. It's going to change because 5 years, we don't even know what this year, a few months from now, reality is going to look like. But you might have the seeds to plant and just leaning into that Mercury and Capricorn if it is kind of coming up for you and supporting you. And also building into this week, as that Mercury shifts into Capricorn, we've got our Sun square Chiron. Okay, so like I said, there's a lot of busy conversations going on this week. And the Sun square Chiron is, and most of you will remember that Chiron has been at 19 degrees and it's direct now. And we really also could have felt that shift of Chiron direct because it's been doing so much of that 19 degree. And that pulled up our April eclipse. And so now the sun moves through Capricorn and they come into that square this week. Okay. And again, this is going to be exact on the 8th and 9th, but we're really feeling it the 8th through the 10th. And, you know, this firstly, it is a square. It is Chiron. There could be some kind of tender, sharp, what is going on, you know, that can kind of come up. However it's going to happen is depending upon our chart, whether it's happening when people are at work or it's just someone is triggering something and it's coming up. But if that's happening, it's happening so that we can actually see what needs to be seen and heal it and move with it and move on. Okay, because that Sun and Chiron, both, they want to move on right now. And so there might be some tenderness, but there also might be some understanding that comes and some really powerful understanding that comes. And of course, that Mercury has moved into Capricorn for this. So we can really actually integrate that understanding in a very nice, practical way. okay? Sometimes our healing vibes are just, they're more kind of in the ethereal realms. We're like, I don't know what's happening, but this is happening and I know it's happening. And then sometimes it's like our mind and our body and our emotions, they can all align and we can understand something and then we move on. So that kind of clicking into place, that might come this week and with some type of healing journey that we're on. Speaking of healing journeys, then we get to the 11th. And we have the nodes switch signs. Okay, so I have a whole video of an introduction to the node switching signs. I will link that below just in case you haven't seen it or you want to kind of chew into it a little bit more, because I'm not going to go into too much of it here, but just knowing that this is a major shift. So this major shift is happening all week. We're feeling it. We're feeling the last breaths of the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries. And then on the 11th, that North Node moves into Pisces and that South Node moves into Virgo. Okay, so just knowing that this week, you know, there might be a shedding that comes. There might be a kind of what's going on that comes, because we are moving ultimately into this axis of Virgo and a clearing, karmic clearing for 18 months. Okay, so it's just starting. Karmic clearing of those kind of Virgo ways that can get us digging into habits that aren't always the best for our mind-body connection, that can lean into kind of too much perfectionism or just putting way too much pressure on ourselves, so it springs into anxiety of feeling how we have to do something. So we're coming into an 18-month journey of learning, of letting go, so that Virgo can just have more spaciousness to do its sanctifying work of this plane in your life and the way that you're of service to others, because that's what Virgo really wants to do. And yet Virgo can put so much pressure onto itself. It can create a lot of dis-ease in the body and the mind. And so because it puts so much pressure on itself, also kind of it can have the archetype of martyring. If martyring yourself is something that is an archetypal resonance with you in this life, this is a wonderful 18 months to let that go. We can be of service to others much more effectively when we are of service to ourselves. And we're also of service to source and soul, which is what that North Node in Pisces is all about, helping us learn, okay, as we move through these next 18 months. And of course, that North Node shift is really wanting to bring us into whole new destiny-filled embodiments of spirituality, mystical, the flow, creative process, compassion, forgiveness, all those Piscean realms. With the North Node, we're wanting to just awaken in that archetypal way even more. And of course, that North Node moves into the 29th degree, okay, of Pisces. So that North Node is going to be trining our Mars as well, our Mars retrograde, and it's going to be conjunct Neptune. Okay, so the exact conjunction of Neptune and the North Node is going to come in February, but we're working with, you know, it's a 2-degree orb. It's going to build closer as we move through January, but it's already there. So there's this conversation between the North Node, Neptune, and Mars retrograde. So there really is this incredible window for healing opening up, for healing our own desire, our own will, especially if we embody personal trauma that has involved any type of violence, abuse. This is an incredible window for healing with that Mars retrograde through Cancer, and the way that it begins this week in this conversation with Neptune and the North Node. Forgiveness practices, forgiveness for ourselves, forgiveness so that we can just journey more fully into our spiritual, wakeful, flowing life, creative life. That energy is here. So lean into that this week. And this brings us into the end of this week, which is the 13th, which is when we have, speaking of everything that I just said, our Cancer full moon. Okay, so this full moon is on the 13th. It is at just before 24 degrees. It's essentially at 24 degrees. It's 23 degrees and 59 minutes, and it is at 2:26, though it is kind of hard to write my rushed handwriting, 2:26 p.m. kind of hard to read my rushed handwriting. 2:26 p.m. Pacific time. And okay, Cancer full moon. So we have our moon in Cancer at 24 degrees, and we have our sun opposite in Capricorn. Okay. And that's coming out of everything I just talked about. So really, this Mars retrograde moving into Cancer is then also, trining that North Node that's going to shift into Pisces, trining that Neptune, is then going to pull us through this week into this full moon, because that Mars retrograde is going to be conjunct the moon, okay? And the sun opposite, she's journeying with Pallas, so she's going to be conjunct Pallas Athena. The sun is also in a wide conjunction with Pluto, who is, of course, at the first degree of Aquarius, while the sun is in Capricorn. So it's dynamic. It's dynamic. It is transformative, and it is opening up opportunities for healing. Okay, I don't want to go too far into it because I'm going to make a whole video on this full moon. But just knowing that there is this, and also Chiron is there. And Chiron is there because the sun has had its exact square with Chiron. Okay, that happened in midweek. And then that Chiron is at 19 degrees. So that is also in a square with our full moon, the moon and the sun as well still. So just amplifying this being a full moon for healing. Cancer, nurture, care, safety, love, home within myself. How am I safe within myself? How am I safe within myself? Maybe I have lived a life in which I never ever believed that statement. Maybe there is still shit going on in my ecosystem, in my environment. And yet, how is there a part of me that's actually always been safe within myself, no matter what's been going on? Okay? We can access that, especially with Mars and Cancer. Talking to the North Node and Neptune, we can remember that soul love, that divine love that is always with us, that is always nurturing us, that is always pouring wisdom and love into us, so that we can feel at home in our body psyche, and that can then ripple out into our actual home. So really calling in those healing vibes, calling in those healing spells and prayers for this full moon. It absolutely also is a transformative. We do have Mars and we do have Pluto there, but in our own kind of journeys of self-inquiry and co-creating with the archetypes, this is an opportunity for breakthroughs in healing. And just setting the intentions and witnessing what's unfolding, and really working with those directives of Mars retrograde coming into Cancer around the Cancer full moon. This is, maybe we get illuminated what we need to spend time caring for in our self-care, in our self-love. This is not a single action of self-love. This is not saying, okay, well, on the full moon, you might do a single action of self-care and self-love. You might go and get that massage. You might go and get this. But this is about a long-term relationship of care and compassion with yourself, of active care, of active rest, of active nurture. That's what this Mars is on a journey to relearn. And right away, we get this full moon. Okay, so it is a dynamic week. We have a lot of shifting. It has gotten completely dark out there while I was chatting with you. And the next time I'm chatting with you, I am my rhythms are changing this week as all of these rhythms are happening, and I'm heading back to my urban rhythms in Toronto. It seems I am heading back to an apartment that does not have huge construction holes in the wall. My landlord has assured me of this, so you won't hear. If you're new to my channel, then you have missed the drama of before I came back to where I am right now, which is in rural BC. I was undergoing construction in my apartment, and I was sharing what it was like living with giant holes and walls everywhere. So hopefully that's all gone, and I will see you in a different setting, and I look forward to chatting with you, and I am sending lots and lots of love, especially for this Cancer full moon, and blessings. Be well. Bye-bye.